I always started my day here, down in the bowels of what used to be a community fallout shelter, now our heart. My sanctuary, if you could call a place where a single power outage meant doom a sanctuary. The main generator, a hulking beast of repurposed pre-collapse machinery, usually roared with a dull, familiar rumble. It was old, grimy, and temperamental, but it had kept our little pocket of Kansas alive for years, pumping what little power we had through the maze of rewired junk that formed our fragile home. I was hunched over it, my headlamp cutting a weak circle in the dim light, prodding a loose wire, listening to its steady growl. It was a good sound, a reassuring rhythm in this twilight zone. But today, there was something else. A new sound slipped in between the coughs and shudders of the old engine. Not a mechanical groan, not the whine of a stressed belt, just a light, repeating, tune-like sound. Like a child's whistle, three faint notes played over and over, very distant. It didn't come from the machine itself, no. It seemed to float from the concrete wall behind the generator, a slab of rough gray that swallowed the weak light from the fluorescent bulb above. "What are you playing at, you old reliable brute?" I mumbled, tightening the wrench. I shook my head, a frown pulling at my brow. Must be my ears. These old vents always make strange sounds. I knew that wasn't it, not really. But I needed it to be. I needed everything to make sense. I wiped grease from my hands onto an old rag, then walked back to my makeshift desk in the corner. An ancient tablet, salvaged from somewhere, glowed faintly with a crude wiring diagram. Our lifelines, all of them. I reached for the coffee mug I'd left sitting there from last night. I expected it to be stone cold, like it always was in the morning. I never left coffee overnight, not anymore, and I hadn't made any new coffee yet. But when my fingers closed around the ceramic, I felt it. Warm. Not hot, not freshly brewed, but definitely warm. As if someone had just placed it there. My hand recoiled slightly. At the very same moment, the child's whistle, those three same notes, sounded again. But this time, it wasn't from the wall. It was clearer, louder, somehow inside my head, an echo that wouldn't die. It had no definite direction, just there. I dropped the cup. It landed with a soft thump, but didn't break. A wave of cold washed over my neck, so sharp it raised the hair there, even though the room was sealed tight. My skin prickled. "Just odd, nothing more," I whispered, the words barely a breath. I tried to dismiss the tightening knot in my stomach. My mind playing games. Tired, that's what it is. Just tired. Definitely just tired. I repeated it, a mantra against whatever this was. It always worked. Or it usually did. Then Sarah burst into the room. Her face was white, bloodless, her eyes wide and unfocused, darting around like trapped birds. Her breath came in ragged, wheezing gasps. "Ethan! Oh God, Ethan!" she choked out, her voice raspy, desperate. Panic, thick and cloying, radiated off her. "Emily! She's gone!" My blood ran cold. Emily, Sarah's little girl, a spark of stubborn joy in this bleak reality. Gone? What do you mean, gone? She was just playing. I tried to keep my voice even, but a tremor crept in. "She was just playing hide-and-seek near the outer perimeter corridor," Sarah sobbed, pointing a trembling finger toward the furthest, darkest passage. "Just around the corner, like always. Then something just, I don't know, something pulled her in." As the last word tore from her throat, the main generator behind me spluttered once, a dying gasp, then went silent. The heavy, familiar rumble vanished, replaced by an uneasy, sudden hush. The last of the overhead lights flickered, dimmed, and then died, plunging the main chamber into an abyss. Only the weak glow of a few emergency lamps remained, struggling to push back the profound gloom, creating long, dancing shadows that stretched like grasping fingers. A heavy, sickening thud echoed from the direction Sarah had pointed, deep within the now pitch-black corridor. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat. Adrenaline surged, burning. "Emily!" I yelled, my voice cracking. I snatched my headlamp, clicked it on, the beam cutting a hesitant path through the suddenly threatening darkness. I ran toward the corridor, Sarah stumbling behind me, whimpering. I saw it, a small piece of cloth, soft pink, Emily's favorite hair bow. It lay right at the edge of the deeper darkness, where no emergency light, no beam from my headlamp could quite reach. I knelt, my hand shaking, and picked it up. It gave off an unsettling warmth, almost a damp heat, as if it had just come from a source of heat, a strange, internal warmth. "Emily!" I called again, louder this time, my voice raw. Only the heavy silence answered, that thick, ringing quiet, broken only by my own desperate breaths and the frantic beat of my heart. Sarah clutched my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. It dragged her away. I saw it. Something," she whimpered again, her eyes fixed on the blackness that now seemed to swallow the corridor whole. I shined my lamp into the void, trying to convince both of us. "No, there's nothing there, Sarah, nothing. She's just hiding deeper. Too good at it." But the words tasted like ash. I knew Emily wouldn't go that far, not into the absolute dark. And the heat from the hair bow clinging to my palm, that was not normal, not at all. This wasn't a game. This wasn't a child's hiding spot. This was a breach. I stood there, the warm pink bow clutched in my hand, its strange heat a chilling warning from a world utterly beyond my comprehension. My lamp beam tried to pierce the blackness ahead, but it was like trying to burn a hole in obsidian. Just a few feet in, the light was swallowed, gone. I felt a cold dread settle deep in my gut, a heavier thing than fear. It wasn't just the generator that had failed, plunging us into a deeper uncertainty. No, more terrifying, our safe boundary, the one thing we thought we could rely on, had been utterly, violently broken. There was something in here, something that wasn't human. Something that had dragged Sarah's little girl away. Something that was now here, inside with us. And the generator. Oh God, the generator. Without it, the emergency lights wouldn't last. The air filters would choke. The meager heaters fail entirely. We couldn't survive here for long without power. Not in the twilight, where temperatures could plummet to killing cold or spike to blazing heat at a moment's notice. Two impossible tasks tangled together, clawing at my mind. I had to find Emily, and I had to find power. And I knew, with a certainty that threatened to shatter me, that those two paths were now one, leading out into the unknown. I turned, my mind racing, trying to formulate a plan, any plan. That's when I heard it.
a whisper, so soft it might have been imagined, from the profound blackness where Emily had vanished. Bah! My blood ran cold again, but this time it burned. It was Emily's voice, unmistakable, but it was distant somehow, like it came from very far away, echoing from a vast, unseen space. And it wasn't a child's voice anymore. It was elongated, deeper, stripped of all feeling, like a faulty recording played back at the wrong speed, corrupted and ruined. It was her voice, but it wasn't her. God, no. Along with the call, a faint, tiny clinking sound, like small shards of glass tapping together. From deep within the gloom, just at the edge of hearing, almost swallowed by the silence. My jaw felt locked. I tried to call her name again, my lips forming the shapes, but no sound came out. No breath. It wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't Emily. It was a greeting. A terrible, mocking welcome. I stood in the middle of that dark, suddenly vast corridor. My headlamp, now a trivial thing, trembled slightly in my hand. Bah! The whisper again, not heard by my ears this time, but felt as a direct vibration in my bones, a cold tremor that ran through me. The shock of that realization hit me then, a kick to the chest that almost buckled my knees. I'd heard Emily's laughter, her excited little screeches, her soft, sleepy murmurs 1,000 times over. But this voice, this thing, it was an empty shell, a machine repeating a corrupted recording from long ago. It was broken. It was wrong. Along with the call, a faint, tiny clinking sound, like small shards of glass tapping together. From deep within the gloom, just at the edge of hearing, almost swallowed by the silence. My jaw felt locked. I tried to call her name again, my lips forming the shapes, but no sound came out. No breath. It wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't Emily. It was a greeting, a terrible, mocking welcome. I stood in the middle of that dark, suddenly vast corridor. My headlamp, now a trivial thing, trembled slightly in my hand. Bah! The whisper again, not heard by my ears this time, but felt as a direct vibration in my bones, a cold tremor that ran through me. The shock of that realization hit me then, a kick to the chest that almost buckled my knees. I'd heard Emily's laughter, her excited little screeches, her soft, sleepy murmurs 1,000 times over. But this voice, this thing, it was an empty shell, a machine repeating a corrupted recording from long ago. It was broken. It was wrong. I looked down at my hand, at the small pink bow, still faintly radiating that unsettling warmth. The sensation spread, up my arm, like thousands of tiny ants crawling under my skin, insistent and loathsome. There was no more doubt. She wasn't there anymore. Just something else, something unspeakable, using her voice, to mock me. Panic had eaten through the last of my rational defenses, leaving only a raw, screaming terror.
I took a breath, not to calm myself, but to fill my lungs with a cold, stomach-churning revulsion and a resolve born of pure, distilled despair. I pushed open the heavy, rusted outer door, the last barrier between our community and what lay beyond. It groaned, a mournful sound swallowed by the suffocating quiet outside.
I stepped out, inhaling deeply the cold, heavy air. It smelled of damp earth, yes, but also a sharp, metallic odor and something acrid, burnt, that I couldn't quite place. I raised my most powerful floodlight, the one meant for patching outside structures, and flicked it on. The beam, brighter than anything inside, cut a strong, defiant path through the never-ending twilight that clung to the horizon. But what I saw wasn't the familiar dirt path, not the faint outline of the crumbling highway, not the skeletal trees I remembered. The ground, it had changed, radically. Massively gnarled veins, a sickening grayish-green, had erupted from beneath the soil. They rose like colossal roots, hard as steel, intertwined, blocking every single exit from our small, desperate outpost. They snaked and coiled, forming a monstrous, organic lattice that stretched as far as the eye could see. They gave off a dim, faint light, not shining, but pulsing, very subtly, like a weak, sluggish heartbeat. I reached out, my hand trembling slightly, and placed it on one of the smooth, bulging surfaces. It was cold, so cold it burned, and faintly slick to the touch, like mucus-coated stone. A faint, low hum began to buzz in my ears, not from the veins themselves, but deep inside my head. And I felt my hair stand on end, a prickling sensation all over my face, as if thousands of invisible gossamer threads were brushing against my skin, gently, probing. The horror wasn't just Emily being dragged away. It wasn't just the generator dying, sealing our fate here. The horror was that the earth had begun to speak, and it was reshaping itself right before my eyes, twisting its own structure, not to defend itself, not to heal, but to hold me, to hold all of us. I looked back, a glance over my shoulder at the dark, silent settlement, the only home we had left. No going back. The rusted outer door groaned open, a sound that just vanished into the heavy air outside. No echo, just silence, deeper than anything inside the settlement. It tasted like ash, that silence. I stepped out, Sarah right behind me, then Mark and Lena, the last ones besides us. My floodlight, the big one, carved a defiant path into the dim twilight. But this wasn't the same twilight I'd known. This was different, somehow deeper, colder, even with the faint, pulsing light these new roots gave off. Those roots, they were everywhere now, thicker, reaching further than before. A maze. We started walking, carefully picking our way between the monstrous gray-green veins. Each step felt heavy. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of damp earth, that metallic stink, and something burnt, something acrid, like a furnace that had been fed things it shouldn't have. We skirted what was left of the old county road, or what used to be a road. Now it was just a twisted ribbon of broken asphalt, swallowed by the things that had erupted from the ground. Trees here, some of them, they looked like sculptures. Half of them were covered in frost, hard ice clinging to every branch, every leaf. The other half was black, brittle, like they'd just burst into flames and then been frozen solid mid-combustion. One side dead from the cold, the other from the heat, both at the same time. It didn't make any sense. My compass, strapped to my wrist, started twitching, just a little at first, then it began to spin, frantic, the needle jumping around like a panicked insect. I kept walking, but it felt like the landscape was pulling at me, trying to drag me backward. I could swear with every step forward, I was also falling back an inch. It was subtle, insidious. Sarah looked at me, her eyes wide. "Strange, isn't it, Ethan?" she said, her voice a little too high. She was trying to sound normal, I knew that, trying to keep it together. I just grunted, focusing on the quivering needle. Probably magnetic interference. These things are all over the place now. I pointed vaguely at the twisted roots. Or maybe some of those travelers, played games, moved things around. I was trying to dismiss it, to wave away the unease. But the feeling of going backward, that was real.
Not just a trick of the light, not just my eyes playing games. We pushed on, deeper into what used to be a forest, now just a gauntlet of frozen and scorched trees. The air grew colder, biting at my exposed skin, even through layers of clothes. But then, as we rounded a bend, the temperature flipped. Just like that. One step, and it was cold. The next, a blast of heat, like standing in front of an open oven. Sweat instantly slicked my forehead. The ground under my feet changed too. The dirt and broken gravel suddenly turned to a smooth, dark rock. It felt rough, somehow alive. Then the rocks began to hum. Not a loud sound, just a low vibration, a thrumming that I felt in the soles of my boots first, then up my legs. And I swear I could feel a faint pulse in the ground. A pulse. A thick, viscous liquid, shining dimly, began to ooze from cracks in the rock. It wasn't water. It was too dense, too deliberate. And it didn't flow downhill. It moved. It traveled across the flat surface, snaking in intricate patterns, like it was tracing a map on the rock. Sometimes it flowed uphill, slowly, defying everything I knew about physics. Just doing physics, right in front of my face. Sarah gasped, stumbling. God, it's freezing, then it's burning up. She was hugging herself, shivering, then recoiling from the sudden heat. I felt my feet getting hot, even through my damn boots. Had to pull back, just a little. "Watch out," I snapped. "Don't touch anything strange." I stared at that moving liquid, mesmerized and horrified. My ears started ringing, like someone had cranked up the pressure in the air around us. A soft, web-like touch brushed my face. Just a whisper of something there, and then gone. I swiped at it, but there was nothing, nothing at all. It knows where we're going," I mumbled, not to Sarah, but to the air, to myself. My breath hitched. That was the only thing I could think of. It wasn't reacting to us. It was anticipating. We kept moving, slower now, every step a hesitant probe into the unknown. The road eventually led us to a place that used to be a small town, or what was left of one. There was a sign, half buried in the shifting soil, leaning at a precarious angle. The words "Welcome to" were mostly faded, eaten away by time and the elements. But the word "home," that word was stark, clear, almost freshly painted. It felt like a fresh wound. We passed the outskirts of the town. Nothing. Just skeletal buildings, gutted by whatever had happened. But then we saw it. An old shopping mall, stretching out like a tombstone in the dim light. Its glass entrance, miraculously still mostly intact, shimmered with a faint internal glow. A strange, almost inviting glow. I knew inviting meant danger out here. Maybe there are supplies," Lena whispered, her voice hopeful but thin.
We approached cautiously, my floodlights sweeping across the broken windows, the twisted rebar. The silence here was different. Not the heavy, foreboding silence of the deformed forest, but a buzzing, expectant silence, like a full theater just before the curtain rises. Then we saw them. People, or what used to be people. They shuffled through the main concourse of the mall, their movements slow, deliberate, like marionettes with loose strings. Their faces were hollowed out, skin pulled tight over bone, dry and withered. Their eyes, those were the worst part. Empty, absolutely no flicker of recognition, no emotion, nothing. Just still, dead pools reflecting the faint, internal light of the mall. They didn't speak, not with words. Only a low, guttural grunting, a soft, wet sound, something caught in their throats. One woman, almost naked, her pale skin covered in a rough, scaly film, was standing over a rusted metal bin. From it, she was scooping out a thick, gray-green liquid. The same stuff we'd seen oozing from the ground. It was splotchy, bumpy, like a patch of diseased skin. And I could swear I saw a faint, slow pulse, a rhythm in the liquid itself. She was rubbing it onto the faces and bodies of others, who stood passively, accepting it, their eyes closed in something that looked like bliss, or maybe just complete surrender. "God," Sarah whispered, her hand clamped over her mouth. "What are they?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth felt dry, like cotton. I just stared, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The way they moved, the utterly blank expressions. They weren't just starving.
They were something else, changed. My eyes found a small figure among them, a child, slumped against a pillar, barely moving. It looked Emily's age. A terrible, cold jolt went through me. I started to move, slowly, instinctively, towards it. Maybe there was still something left, a chance. As I stretched out my hand, cautiously, the child turned its head. Its face was blank, no expression at all. But its eyes, they weren't dead like the others. They were bright, an intense, vibrant blue-green, like freshly cut emeralds, glowing from within. And from its small chest, a rattling sound escaped, a wheezing cough that somehow felt like a whisper, a wordless whisper. It wasn't asking for help. It was looking at me, just looking. Sarah, her hand still clamped over her mouth, stumbled back a step. She accidentally knocked a dry deer bone off a display shelf. It hit the tiled floor with a sharp crack. The sound, the sharp, sudden crack. Every single person in the mall stopped. Every blank-faced, shuffling form froze. Then, slowly, in unison, they turned their heads. All of them. All those dead, empty eyes fixed on us. On me. The blue-green eyes of the child were locked onto mine. The air around us seemed to thicken, pressing in, heavy, making it hard to breathe. I felt that invisible, web-like touch again, clinging to my face, crawling on my skin. This time, I knew it wasn't my imagination. They're not human anymore, Sarah choked out, her voice barely a whisper. She was visibly shaking. What are they? I felt a cold sweat break out on my back. Their blank stares, those glowing eyes, and that liquid pulsing on their skin. I knew it wasn't making them better. It was changing them, turning them into something else.
something connected. "We can't stay here," I said, my voice hoarse. They've gone mad." But I knew that wasn't right. They hadn't gone mad. They had become something else. This wasn't just environmental delirium. This was assimilation. They weren't insane. They were simply evolving, becoming part of whatever this new reality was. Material for it. The people, the changed ones, began to move. Slowly, deliberately, they shuffled towards us. No sudden movements, no panicked charge. Just a slow, relentless advance. Their glowing blue-green liquid skin shimmered faintly in the dim light. I saw the eyes of the child among them, bright green, unwavering. This wasn't a place for refuge, no chance of help. This was a warning, a living, breathing warning right in front of us. And I knew, deep down, a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that it wasn't just the environmental changing, it was us. We were next. "Run," I whispered, just one word. "Run." We turned and ran, scrambling back the way we came, the shuffling footsteps of the changed growing louder behind us. We burst out of the mall's entrance into the dim twilight, hoping to disappear among the twisted trees, the gnarled roots. But as we dodged around a crumbling lamppost, something rose from the ground directly in front of us. A wall. A massive stone wall, not there a second ago, now blocking our escape. It was unlike any rock I'd ever seen. It was made of thousands of incomplete, twisted human faces. Not carved, not reliefs. They were organic, fused together, contorted in agony, but arranged in some horrifying, almost artistic pattern. It wasn't ordinary stone. It felt alive, like hardened flesh. Milky, viscous fluid, the same consistency as the stuff on the people's skin, oozed from the crevices between the faces. With it, 100 hushed whispers snaked into the air. Not frantic, not desperate, just soft, meaningless calls. Calls of Emily, Sarah, Ethan, my name, over and over. Then, from the center of the wall, a face became clearer, more defined. It was still twisted, but somehow recognizable. It opened its mouth, but not to speak. Instead, it revealed a single gold tooth. A gold tooth. My blood ran cold. I knew that tooth. I'd pulled it myself, years ago, from my father's mouth, before all this, before the collapse. A personal secret, tucked away in a small locked box, hidden with my most private things. I hadn't told anyone about it, not Sarah, not Mark, no one. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in my ears. The whispers intensified, weaving individual strands of pure fear. "Your old truck," a voice hissed, specifically to me. "The scar on your right knee," another whispered, knowing.
Emily's giggles in the night. The wall. It wasn't just absorbing. It knew. It knew our deepest, most private secrets. It was inside my head. What did you see?" Sarah choked out, clutching my arm, her voice trembling. I couldn't answer her. I couldn't even look at her. All I could do was stare at that gold tooth embedded in the living stone. This wasn't just random geological change. This wasn't some mindless elemental shift. There was an intelligence here, a horrifying, ancient intelligence, and it was playing with us. I roared, a guttural sound torn from my chest, and pulled out my survival knife. I plunged it into the wall, aiming for the gold tooth, for anything. The blade didn't clang against rock. It sank in, smoothly, as if I was punching into a warm, soft mass of flesh. A tiny, sibilant hiss escaped from the thousands of mouths on the wall. Not a sound of pain, no. It was a sound of amusement, a cold, mocking pleasure. The faces on the wall twitched. The milky, viscous fluid began to flow faster, coating my knife blade. I yanked it back, pulling with all my strength. But the blade was different. Half of it was gone, eaten away, melting like wax in my hand in a matter of seconds. It was useless. I couldn't fight this with force, not against this. Up, I yelled, pointing to a dark, narrow gap in the ceiling of what used to be a pedestrian overpass, now just a twisted, broken roof. Go, I'll distract it. I could feel its presence, a heavy, invisible eye watching me, evaluating every twitch, every frantic breath. I moved, feigning a charge, drawing its attention, while Sarah and Mark scrambled, their hands tearing at the crumbling concrete. Lena was already halfway up. The whispers grew louder, personalized, delving into every corner of my mind. Chiếc xe tay cũ của anh, vết sẹo trên đầu gối phải, tiếng khúc khích của Emily trong đêm. The whispers repeated, like a terrible mantra, not just echoing, but living inside my skull. It wasn't just listening, it was searching. I stumbled back, my hands scraping against the rough ground. My arm throbbed where something unseen had grazed me. It wasn't a cut, more like a burn, leaving a raw, stinging track across my skin. I pushed myself up, scrambling over broken asphalt, not looking back, not daring to. I just had to get away. Survival. That was it. Just survival. Emily? Emily was gone. This place wasn't just consuming. It was becoming. And we were just part of the process, raw material. I kept moving, blindly, my lungs burning, muscles screaming in protest. My body ached, a deep, pervasive pain that settled in my bones. I didn't know where I was going, just away. Away from the whispers, away from the faces, away from the knowing intelligence. I fell, sprawling onto a patch of cold, mossy rock. My head hit hard, sending a flash of white behind my eyes. I lay there for a second, gasping, tasting blood in my mouth. My headlamp had fallen off, the beam now pointing uselessly at my feet. When I finally managed to lift my head, I saw it. In the distance, a faint, pulsing blue-green light. It wasn't a normal light, not a steady glow. It was breathing. A soft, rhythmic pulse, like a slow, deep heartbeat. I pulled myself up, groaning, and started crawling towards it. Crawling because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. As I dragged myself closer, the light resolved into a colossal structure. A pyramid, vast and terrifying, made of the same blue-green gnarled veins I'd seen back at the settlement. It pulsed with that slow, internal rhythm. At its peak, a gaping hole. And from that hole, faint blue signals emanated.
Not light, not quite. They were blurred, flickering images, brief, fleeting glimpses, memories. Hundreds of human faces, flashing for a fraction of a second, then gone. And then, clearer, sharper, right in the center of the light, I saw it. Emily's face. She was smiling, but her eyes, they had no pupils. They were a brilliant, vibrant blue-green, exactly like those of the child in the mall. And then I heard it. Bah! Clearer than ever. It wasn't Emily's voice. It was the voice of the light itself. The voice of the thing that had swallowed her. It was in my mind, not my ears. A cold, resonating vibration in my skull. I collapsed again, my face pressed against the cold, damp rock. My eyes began to burn, an intense itching sensation. I clawed at them, desperately. When I pulled my fingers away, there was a faint, light blue fluid on them.
I smelled the damp earth, and that acrid, burnt smell again. A smell of something old, something new. The smell of change. The smell of this new home. A terrifying prison, vast and knowing. A prison I had just stumbled into. One that was waiting for me.